does the term UFO mean aliens? No, not necessarily. But it doesn't simply mean an object which has not been identified. UFO, in the context of the UFO phenomena, refers to objects that cannot be identified after all possible natural and man-made phenomena have been ruled out. And the account of Commander David Fravor, the Navy pilot who chased the Tic Tac UFO, is one of the best documented cases that have ever existed. There are countless accounts throughout the decades of aircraft doing the same things that he saw, but there aren't a lot of documentation by multiple witnesses and video footage, and the witnesses are not necessarily credible, or you don't know if they're credible or not. They might have misperceived what they saw. But with the release of the Tic Tac UFO, it's a lot harder to dismiss the existence of aircraft that can do this. But people rightly attempt to explain it through something more mundane before going to aliens. And I'm actually going to explain why man-made top secret technology is actually a somewhat more extraordinary explanation and far less likely than visitors from another planet. That does not imply that it is visitors from another planet. There are a lot of other possible scenarios that could explain it that don't require extraterrestrials. But the reason it's a legit UFO is that it demonstrates capabilities that I think can rule out the likelihood of human created technology. And here's why. So, first of all, it's very interesting that everybody who tries to explain it as man-made aircraft refers to it as a drone. Oh, it's just it's just a drone. It's Russian or Chinese or maybe our own government. This is actually very telling about the way people making that argument are interpreting it. Because there's nothing about it that would indicate whether it was manned or unmanned. Nothing. It's an aircraft of some type of technology that is unfamiliar. So why do people refer to it as drones? That's just drones. Because when they say drones, what they really mean is quadcopters, which you can have human-piloted quadcopters or drone quadcopters. And so the reason they think that they're flying like quadcopters is because they display omnidirectional movement, which is different than airplanes. And in terms of the shape, it's more like a drone than it is a helicopter. You know, it's compact. It's not structured like helicopters. So a drone would make more sense. The problem is that if we are to accept Fravor's description of how it flew, and it as unextraordinary it is in the video, it does display something consistent with what he said. It did not fly like a drone. Just the omnidirectional movement is drone-like, but the ability to accelerate to supersonic speeds instantaneously without creating a sonic boom and not showing any signs of propulsion um, it's it is demonstrating not just an advanced technology, but a technology that requires an advancement in the laws of physics as we understand them that would be virtually impossible to keep secret from the public. And here's why. If the government went and recruited the best of the best physicists and said, hey, come work on this secret program with us, though there's those physicists would have been been publishing research and advancements in physicists in physics for decades. And even if they made a really revolutionary breakthrough while working for the US government, even before that, they would have developed theories that brought us closer to that. Um, you know, and they would have become famous and well known. And physicists around the world, when seeing the the way that these craft moved, they might not know the specifics of how they operate, but they could at least explain it within a framework of physics that is known. So if these aircraft are using gravity drives, let's say, as opposed to normal propulsion, they might not know exactly how they would have engineered it, but they would at least be able to say, oh, well, this fits with our theories about how gravity works. Maybe somebody could exploit that. There is nothing even close to it. This understanding of physics is at least hundreds of years in the future. And even if the government did recruit the best of the best physicists, it would still only be a fraction of a percent of the physicists out there. And so it would be a little crazy to think that that tiny fraction of physicists would just so happen to make that revolutionary breakthrough while working for the US government and then keep it a secret. Maybe you could compel them to keep it a secret, but there would be enough research that all the other advanced physicists would know about that it would be a little crazy to think that it would be that tiny fraction of a percent of physicists in the US government that just so happened to make that discovery. No, it would most likely be out in academia. Furthermore, the absolute most advanced physicists in the world would not go and work for the US government. It's not impossible, but a lot of them wouldn't, because they'd have no motivation to. And here's why: because if they were that advanced, they would be making revolutionary, groundbreaking discoveries and become rich and famous for doing that. And so they would have no motivation to come work for the government. They could pay them a bunch of money, but they would have to keep it secret. No, that wouldn't happen. Most scientists are not primarily driven by money anyway. If you're going to really make those big breakthroughs, you have to be motivated by love for the science. So there's that. Because we're talking about aircraft that don't even use propulsion. Every advancement in aerospace technology since the Wright brothers has come about in incremental steps that built upon previously established science and engineering that we know about. When stealth technology was developed, it wasn't a radical development that would have completely shocked anybody. It was impressive, but what we know about radar technology, I'm not an expert in that by any means. But what I do know is that radar picks up some objects better than others. And one of those variables is the shape of the object. And so it's not revolutionary to think that somebody could come up with an aircraft of a certain shape that minimized that ability to be detected. And so there's that. So another example would be the switch from propellers to jet engines. Okay, big advancement in technology, but it's not like looking at magic. You can see that it's still operating on the same physics of propulsion, where you force, Newton's, I forget, second law, whatever it was, where an object will move. You put a force on something and it will move or be forced in an equal and opposite direction. So whether you aim your propellers forward or up, like in an airplane versus a helicopter, still operates on that principle, still uses the Bernoulli principle for differential pressure on either side of the wing. If you point your jet engine backwards, as in a jet airplane, or you point it downwards, as in rockets, still using the same understanding of physics and technology. To be able to create aircraft that don't operate on any of those principles at all is unthinkable. So, so that's the argument from physics for why it would be unlikely that humans would be able to create it. So what about aliens? That's even more extravagant, right? Well, it's really not as extravagant because there is very good evidence and logic for the likelihood that there are extraterrestrial civilizations that exist in our universe, and they probably would be capable of interstellar flight. So there's good reason to think that exists, but the idea that there are physicists who have that level of revolutionary understanding of physics and they've decided to go work for the U.S. government and keep it a secret is I'd like to hear an argument for how that would even work or why that would work. Maybe there is one, but that's one of my reasons. And so next I'm going to talk about why, even if that did happen, why it's certainly not one of our enemies. It's not the Russians and not the Chinese, and it's also certainly not our own. And I don't know who it would be of our allies either. So